Members, my amendment passed this body 66-1. A similar amendment, a little broader in scope, passed the House unanimously. Senator Osmek was the one who voted against the amendment on the Senate floor, and he was put in charge of negotiating its inclusion into the omnibus jobs bill. I want to thank Senator Limmer for his bipartisan leadership on this issue and willingness to focus on the important privacy issues that we are facing, because in a time of highly partisan division, this is an issue which he has repeatedly proven to me that he focuses on the issues and not the partisanship of it. And that's why we were able to get to a full floor vote. That amendment was passed a month before the conference committee reports. A month before the conference committees met. There was ample opportunity for the conference committees to talk about it, to take public input, to consider the language, even for Senator Osmek and Representative Garofalo to consider the language. Why they didn't do it, I'll leave to others to speculate. But it's very disappointing, this process. In fact, it seems to have been the process followed by a number of the conference committees where there was a notice given at 10:30 at night that they're going to be meeting at 8:30 the next morning to adopt conference committee reports that no one saw except in the dark of night, let alone opportunities to fashion amendments. But to argue that there was no time it just doesn't make any sense to me. And in fact, conference committees deal with this all the time. They take public testimony on provisions that have differences between the House and the Senate. The stakeholders testify, the public testifies, the members of the conference committee work on language, trying to find language. You go back and forth in open conference committee, you go back and forth sometimes behind the scenes, trying to craft language that can work. It does not appear that any of that happened here. It seems that from the very beginning, the intention was simply, never mind, I'm going to withdraw that statement. Nothing showed up, and there's no evidence that any work was actually done on language. I should note that we in Minnesota should be quite proud of the work that we did as a Senate already on this, because it set off a national trend. My office received quite a few requests from coast to coast for the language that we passed and asking how they can protect their citizens as well. And the Star Tribune editorial that I distributed on the floor here gives you a good explanation of why, because Congress, in the middle of our legislative session, after our committee deadlines, by the way, took action to repeal the action of the federal regulatory body and to open up the internet data for much more exploitation than is currently the law under federal law or under state law. And we were the first state to take any step to respond to that. And as I said before on this floor, when asked why did this come up at that time, it's because it was the day after Congress passed their legislation to repeal the regulation that was forthcoming. So we had to move quickly if we wanted to adequately protect the privacy of Minnesota citizens who use the internet. We clearly cannot count on the federal government to do it for us. And as for 325M, I'm quite aware of Section 325M. It is part of the Consumer Protection Statutes. It was passed 15 years ago. Has not been updated since. I don't think I need to explain to the members of this body or the public how much has changed in technology and explosion of the use of the internet and all of the hacking abilities on the internet and what's happened with commercialization, of monetization of data, private data on the internet. And while 325M does apply to internet service providers, it is inadequate for today's tasks and for today's environment. and it says nothing at all and does nothing at all to protect individuals' data, which is gathered through all of the non-internet service provider participants in internet activity. All of the portals that we use every day, Google, Facebook. I can stand here for an hour probably and list them and miss most of them. None of them are regulated by 325M. The House language explicitly sought to regulate all of those third-party users of the internet and to protect the collection, or the sale, the dissemination, the commercialization of our private data. And that is why we have a process whereby the House and the Senate can get together and work on language together. That process didn't happen this time. And so all I'm going to say in the end here is that we had the opportunity. The majority conferees chose to pass on the opportunity to protect internet privacy. It is the #1 issue that I'm talked to about when I'm out in my community. Strangers came up to me in the grocery store and thanked me for protecting their internet privacy. So I, for one, just offer a bit of a caution to those of you who plan to vote for this bill. You might hear from your constituents on it.